All right. Hello.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Tuesday podcast going live. Today, we got a really special guest. Somebody who is a rock star, got a lot of things going on, family man, business owner, has a team, like doing all the things. So let's give a shout out, Mike McDonald. Thanks for coming in today, bud.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, it's so good to be here. Excited to talk some real estate and life with you guys today. So looking forward to it.
Well, Michael's also part of the family mastermind. And I think that's one of the first ways that we probably connected, maybe online first, but then you saw there, it was just like instant connection, like great people hanging out together. It's hard not to make these connections. So
yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things that drew us all together was real estate, yes, but also family. You are such a family man. And so I definitely want to talk about that work-life balance that everybody asks about and what life is like over in your neck of the woods and what you've got going on. And I'd love to start, from the beginning. Can you take us back where you started and, take us to where you are today?
All right. Well, it started when somebody told me about this thing called wholesale real estate. And I'm like, no way. Like you can't make money without having any money or actually buying the house, right? Well, the guy on stage convinced me, and long story short, went from working a 9-to-5 job, pretty much realized that this wasn't going to cut it, to stroking a credit card that didn't have the credit for $45,000. And that was how I learned how to wholesale real estate. And it was just a complete failure for the first 8 months. I was like following their instruction, trying to figure it out, and just falling on my face. But I was taking massive imperfect action, which is, I think, is the key for anybody here who's listening. If you're trying to implement some real estate that you've never learned how to do before, like you're going to have lessons, right? There's going to be challenges. And so took me 8 months to get that first deal. And that first deal was a game changer because not only did it help me pay off half of the credit card debt, it also gave me that faith to fact moment where I was just like, wow, I just made half of my salary in one deal, and I never looked back since. And easy for me, I wasn't making that much money in my day job as like a dietetics major. I was working at a hospital, and my wife looked at me shortly after that first check, and she's just like, you can't keep doing both of these things. She's like, you look exhausted. I look back, guys, like at the videos that I was making, because like I said, I was taking action. Like I was uncomfortable on camera, but I was doing videos. I was doing walkthroughs on houses, and I was just like a walking zombie because I was so burnt out from grinding from like 8 to 5:30, driving through traffic, and then coming home, cold calling, trying to get my business marketed out there. And so it was a grind in the beginning, but that was how I got started, and really just put it all on the line by realizing, hey, I know how to do this. I did 3 deals. I'm gonna quit my job. And so shortly after, I did quit my job, and there's a lot to unpack moving on from there, but crazy to think about.
Well, wait a second though. You dropped some major already, guys. So if you're just watching this right now, first of all, you bet on yourself, right? You took out your credit cards. You made the bet on yourself to financially invest into maybe a better future for yourself. You took risks, right? Which is huge because you've already take many steps that people those are big steps, right? And then what did you do? Even most importantly, in the beginning, like everybody else, like you weren't great in the beginning. We all kind of stink in the very beginning, but you fall on your face and you're learning. But the only way to learn, the key factor here is you took massive, messy action. And if you're listening, like Mike's already dropped a huge dime, y'all. And that's really what it takes, is just taking those steps. And rather you're great in the beginning, rather you stink, and chances are you probably stink. And that's good because that means there's room for improvement. And then obviously over those 8 months before you found your first deal, you probably did improve a bunch, but it didn't always seem like that, right? And for some reason, it's always the confidence of that first deal that makes you think, well, okay, maybe I can do this, right? Which is more valuable than the actual money most times.
Yeah, 8 months, which can you express how long that felt to you?
Well, it felt like a century, especially like after the first 4 months. I did have a deal under contract, and I was like counting the money. I thought I had it assigned for a $15,000 profit, and then the deal just like fell apart. The buyer backed out, and it didn't work out. But yeah, I just remember my wife coming to me. Like I'll never forget that moment. And she's like, Are you sure this is gonna work? Because if you guys can imagine this for a second, I'm making $35,000 a year, like just out of college, a couple years out of college, just bought a new house, have the car payment, and my interest payments on that credit card, just the interest, or excuse me, no, not even the interest. The minimum payment was like $800 a month. And it was starting to like just like bury me. And so I had to have such a positive mindset and vision for what I actually wanted this to become, because I could have easily given up so many different times in there, because it was just like, is this ever going to work? And that's how long it felt. Like it just felt like it was taking forever, and I was totally exhausted. But the thing is I think this is very important for everybody to realize. And I'm looking up at my wall right now because I have in front of me, it says, remember why you started. I had a very burning desire to want more for my life. And throughout that journey, my wife actually found out that we were expecting our first daughter. And that was my why at that time, was I got to do this for my future daughter, my future family. And so it was so big to me that like nothing was going to stop me. Like I think what's important for people to understand is you have to draw the line in the sand and decide. And that's what I did. And that's why I think that anybody can do this if they just decide.
Well, and you also brought up a really great point. So for any of you who maybe you haven't done your first deal yet, that took you 8 months was actually the biggest blessing. And sometimes we don't realize that, because sometimes a wholesaler or a new investor, you might get lucky pretty quickly. I mean, you might get that first deal in a couple of weeks, but then that kind of taints you because you believe it's always this easy. And then the next time you face some adversity, you're like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. I mean, you had to just chew on like nothing for 8 months of solid, straight up hustle and grind for 8 months before you could finally find that fruit of that labor, which probably tastes a little better to you, but also realize that like you have that dominant persistence that just you're not really going to stop until you get what you need, which is huge. So, I mean, so many small wins that you've already kind of mentioned is probably why you guys are so darn successful. So that was kind of starting out. So obviously your business has grown since then.
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah. So, what kind of happened? What was that progression like? Like, what kind of made you feel like, okay, now I've done a couple of deals.
You did 3 deals, and you're going to go full time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was that transition like now that you're your own boss?
Yeah. So I'll talk about it from the time that I quit my job, because I think a lot of people, that's like the goal, right? Is like, if you want to get into real estate full time, you feel like you're going to have all the freedom in the world, right? I just knew that I would rather bust my butt, knocking doors, like doing whatever it took, even if I had to work more hours, to make just as much money than going to the job. And so what ended up happening is I met a business partner who I cold called off a for rent sign, and I sold him a few wholesale deals, and we started a business partnership together. He had experience flipping, and I had experience, proof of concept at this point, finding the deals. And so I'm like, well, this is great. You know, we can just partner, and I'll find the deals, he'll flip the deals. We can maximize every one of them. And we ended up deciding to sell the house first, because I wanted at least some money in the bank. So I sold our house first. The day that check cashed, I put in my 2 weeks notice. And so I basically bought myself a buffer, and I said, hey, I've got 3 months to figure this out. So that was the first thing that I did. But from there, it was just finding distressed properties. I was driving the streets. I was talking to people. I was telling people what I was doing. I was networking. And it was a lot of like sweat equity type of stuff, like bandit signs, networking, etc. And that's how I got my first few deals. But then from there, to kind of as if I didn't have enough pressure, if you will, my wife said, "Hey, why don't we move to Las Vegas?" So this was in Nebraska, and I'm like, I looked at her like, I was like, "Are you crazy? Like, literally, are you crazy?" She's like, "Well, you can do this virtually, right? Like from anywhere in the country." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I've never done it before." She's like, "Well, let's see if we can do it." So I quit my job in May, and I moved to Vegas in October, and we drove across the country on my birthday. And so that was my first year in real estate. But what was crazy is like proof of concept from being in person, doing the bandit signs, knocking on doors, etc., to sending a text message to a homeowner, like on a cold outreach. This was back in 2019 when texting was like hot. And I closed the deal over the phone. So I texted the seller, and she responded right away. I got on the phone, and I pretty much just said, "Hey, like, why haven't you sold this house? Didn't you say you just had an offer?" She's like, "Yeah, but it was not quite what I was hoping for." I was like, "Well, if I give you $1,000 more, would that work for you?" And she says, "Yes." So I did my first virtual deal over text message. And that was the proof of concept and kind of the confidence that, hey, this, like, there's something here. It was almost like that first wholesale deal. I'm onto something. I can do this from anywhere in the world, and this is exciting. And so that was my first year, was just quitting my job, moving across the country, and learning how to virtually wholesale without ever stepping foot into a property.
Boom. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, once again, you're now growing your brand in the beginning is what you were doing, which you really talked about. You know, you're going to the meetups, you were meeting people in person, you were socializing and networking who you are and what it is that you can do. And I think that's one of the things that us as investors are kind of always worried about is, you know, if I put on social media that I buy real estate, what are my family going to think? What are my friends going to say about me? Right. And I think that's one of the biggest things that almost mentally holds people back.
Oh, for sure stops people.
But then it also, too, that's what's also holding you back is not doing that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at all the best companies around the planet, like they work on branding. And that's what you are doing just on a very boots on the ground type basis. So when we talk about going to meetups and networking with other investors and realtors and attorneys and all these things and wholesalers, and this is how you're going to start getting your business, right? And building leads flow and just connecting. Because if you connect, the better you can do with that. I think the faster you get to where you're trying to go for sure, rather than trying to be like the lone wolf, right? Because I don't know how well that works.
Right.
And that was just it. Like, it was, my vision was to be the most known. And, you know, love him or hate him, Grant Cardone, he always talks about this. You don't have to be the best service. You just got to be the best known, like marketing wise. And so I'm like, how am I going to do this? Right. Like, I'm just one person. I don't have a ton of budget. But what ended up happening is I was starting to do some deals, and I would take the profits and I would allocate a percentage towards marketing, and I would start to brand. And so at first it was a very niche list of direct mail and cold calls. Then from there, you know, I would start to, I would do the Facebook post, right? And so like you said, I was on Steve Shrink's podcast. I saw your guys' interview, which was awesome, by the way. And you guys said something on that interview that I want to point out because I took immediate action on it. And that was, go post in some Facebook groups. Like, go post that, hey, I'm looking for a property that isn't market ready, and I'm looking to buy in the next couple of weeks. I went and posted that. You guys probably saw it on my Facebook page, if you know, because we're friends on there. But I
think we did actually.
Yeah. Yep, verbatim. And I purposely did that leading into this because I'm like, I just want to show people that if you take this action, who cares what anybody thinks? This stuff works. I had people reach out to me. Hey, I'm an agent. I come across off-market deals like all the time. Haven't got a deal from it yet, but it's all about consistency.
Yeah.
And so that's the name of the game, right? I was just consistent, continue to brand. And here's what I love about your guys' brand that I also encourage people to do is hear from your sellers, like get testimonials from your people. We have a Google business page with over 115 5-star reviews. What do you think a seller thinks when they're talking to somebody and they're looking at somebody with 2 versus somebody with 115? I started with 1, right? But that was that important to me, and that's how we built our brand up to where it is today. But it was always continuously investing back into the brand.
Well, and I think that's huge because, like, if I even want to go out to eat,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm looking on Google reviews, like, even what's for dinner.
I go right to their Facebook page. Yeah, like that's how we kind of immediately, like it or not, we get judged and we judge others, and so give them something to look at, like you're saying. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, as I've started to build a team, it's you want them to fit that culture and the same values as you have. And one thing that a seller told me yesterday personally, that he's like, you guys haven't even bought my house yet, but he's like, can I leave you a review? He's like, I'm so happy about the experience because you guys have been so great, like following up. He's like, everybody else is kind of like short and I don't know, just not pleasant to speak to. And I'm like, wow, like that's pretty cool. I've never heard that before, but it just goes to show you the type of business that you do, right? And you leave an impression on everybody that you come across. So, you know, just do the right thing, right? It's pretty straightforward.
Do you like hopping on those calls, or is that something in the beginning? I mean, you were door knocking even, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I didn't do that for too long because door knocking sucks. But like,
I can only imagine.
Let's just be honest. I almost got, so I came across a guy who inherited 2 houses. I almost bought, but it didn't work out. But I do enjoy it. So I actually love talking to sellers. It's actually something that I've had to like kind of refrain from because like I'm good at it. Like it works. And so now that I have acquisition managers, we're using the same frameworks, the same sales process, etc., to you know, have them close all the deals. But I'd be lying to you if I said I don't still get on the phones and talk to sellers because I love it. I don't know if Joe does too, but I actually signed 2 contracts yesterday myself.
Woo!
There you go.
Nice job.
There you go.
Yeah.
Show them that you still got it.
And that's the point, right? It's like, okay, guys, here is my expectation, right? Like my expectation's high. And it's because when you build a brand, you know, we have such a competitive advantage. You guys have such a competitive advantage. And that's what everybody, you know, listening to this needs to understand is like, capitalize on those early times where you're in person with the seller, right? You're in person with a tenant, a buyer, or whoever you're with. Grab a quick video with them, like have some fun with it, and share that with your friends and family, regardless of how bad you think it is, because it's probably going to be pretty rough in the beginning. But who's really there to judge? I mean, it's for the better of your business.
Yeah, and I always say like that you'll get better and better the more you do. So if you're nervous, go live. If you're scared, take that photo, make the post. You know, it's funny to look back. We've got some from 2017. We're like, what were we doing? I don't know.
I mean, and we've been doing it for so long now. I can't believe like how like much younger I look. Like I must be aging, or I don't know. But like I look back, I'm like, look at these 2 just started.
Little babies.
When Jen would take the phone and like, hey, we're doing Facebook Live. I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, all of our friends are going to see what we're doing right now. Go. And here we are in front of some junker in the middle of winter we just bought. I am terrified. Yeah. But we survived. Like it happened. It did it. And now you go back and now it's 4 years ago we have this content there. Or I'm not sorry, 7 years ago.
More than that, yeah.
So it adds up and it grows. So even if you're just a little bit nervous, there's no better way to build your brand than social media right now. It is 2024 for some of you listeners. It has never been easier to communicate and network than it is right now in the history of humans.
Yeah.
So if you're not building your brand to where you can get in front of hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or even millions of people, by using social media. There's really not many other ways you could do it, especially because it's free, guys. It doesn't even cost money.
Yeah. Isn't that the crazy part? Like it's $0 to have Facebook.
Like, how much money did you pay for those 105 Google reviews, bud?
Well, I didn't pay anybody anything for the review.
Right.
But I did spend a lot of money on marketing to find those opportunities, which
Right.
is something that I think, I do a little bit different in terms of how we market our business. We do write a pretty big check every month, but remember, it started with the hustle and bustle of bandit signs and knocking on doors. And so just started with a little bit and then increased the marketing budget because advertising works, right? Facebook is people need to see you to know what you're doing. And so we just put it out there.
Yeah. So if you're just starting out, what we say, what Michael said, the same thing is, when you're first starting out, you don't need to go spend money to do deals. You turn it into a business full time and you're growing a business, then you're going to want some more consistency, but you've already made money. And so now you're reinvesting that money that you've made back into your business rather than taking a ton of money out of savings and throw that into it. So, it builds up, that's the point. So
it builds character too.
Sure does. So
I feel like when you invest your time into it and you make it happen, then you'll understand like, wow, okay, so like I just made 15,000 and you take a little chunk of that and you put it towards the future marketing budget. Like that's so smart to be able to do that. Or even maybe put all of it. Maybe if you have that's just your side hustle, maybe you are still in your W-2 and all of it goes back in your business. But, the point is you have to roll up your sleeves, and everybody that I know that's gotten really successful, they kept with it, but they started, with bandit signs or Facebook free ads. They all work, like you said, staying consistent. I want to go talk a little bit about wholesaling because I feel like wholesaling sometimes has a very negative connotation to it. And I want to share, because I think I know the way that you're talking to sellers and you're actually helping them out. Can we kind of shed some light on some, people who might still, I don't know if I would do wholesaling. It seems shady. Why is it so helpful to sellers and in these situations? And how are, the fact that you're getting all these 5-star reviews, like it says a lot.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've heard that a lot too. And there's two different ways to wholesale. There's a transparent way and there's a slimy way to do it. And what I mean by that is I think it's only fair to let the seller know what your intention is with the property. So when we go under contract to buy a house, most of the time we have the ability to purchase it at the cash price when we do it. And that's what a wholesale is when you get a property at a wholesale cash price with the intentions to sell it to another cash buyer, right? So you're selling your contract to another cash buyer. And so we're extremely transparent with what we're doing. And also now that we've done so many deals, like unless something crazy happened, we're not gouging them on the price. We're not, backing out on them last minute. There has to be an expectation. And so that's how we've been successful is we let them know, hey, here's what you can expect. In this case, we're going to actually be earning our fee from the other third-party buyer. Most people don't care, but you'll net every dollar that we promise you. And so here's what this looks like. And we're going to have an inspection day and time where our investors that we work with are going to come through and do their walkthrough. And once we get the feedback from that inspection, we'll follow up with you and let you know how we're moving forward. Most of the time, that's a green light. If for whatever reason, like the feedback was totally different from our expectations, because remember, we're not walking these properties. So we're gathering a lot of information on the condition. We'll let you know. We're not here to string anybody along because, and the reason I said slimy is because sometimes people will get the house under contract for a super inflated price, listed on the flat fee MLS, and, beat the seller up and 2 days before closing where they don't have any option. And then you're screwing this person over, and it's really sad to see. And so we've just made it a mission to be transparent and have multiple different options. So we can do many other things besides just wholesale property, which I know you guys talk a lot about creative finance, but we have that tool in our tool belt as well. And we definitely utilize it when there's no equity and stuff like that. But yeah, if we're talking wholesale, that's what I would say about that. A long answer to a short
No,
question.
I was like, I'm going to go there because I see such a benefit to be able to help people out and to explain it the way you did. There's always a right way and a wrong way to do things. And clearly you're doing it the right way. So just to educate other people too, this is how you can do this effectively. And again, doing it virtually, it seems impossible to some people. So maybe we could break that down too, but.
Well, I think it was awesome too, how you mentioned that you're transparent with your sellers. Yeah. You're upfront with your sellers because there's no one deal ever worth your reputation.
Correct.
There's never one deal out there that's worth it, guys and girls listening. So you just got to remember that your reputation's everything. And if you go around town doing great deals and you do great things and you're helping people and you're putting out positive things into the community, it will come back to you. And then the flip side of it, if you're doing the opposite of those things, that will also come back to you. And so for us, and many others listening, and I'm sure we all probably feel the same way, but real estate is not a get rich quick overnight thing where, I could put my money here and then tomorrow I'm a cajillionaire and now I could take the rest of my life off and, do all those things that you see on Instagram, which are all fake. But this is actually some work, right? But you can grow wealth, but it takes some time. So if you're going to build it, you've got to build it right from the beginning and be on the up and up. That's why I put on my Facebook page the other day, do the right thing. Just do that, right? And if you do that, it does come back to you. So what are some of those maybe lessons, or if there was a book you read, or some of these things that maybe helped you hone in on your skills as far as doing this, that it's a good help for the listeners?
That's a great question.
I got some others too for you, so.
Good. Yeah, honestly, I haven't really I have mentors, right? But I haven't found anything that's this is exactly how you should virtually wholesale. I haven't found that.
Maybe you should write the book.
Let me just put it this way, shameless plug. I did write the ebook about it, and I did create material on how to do it. And you can check it out for free if you want to.
Yeah, plug away. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's thevirtualmillionaires.com. So like I said, I put it together and you can get free resources and accelerator training in there. But at the end of the day, it's failing first, right? I had to kind of experience some of the things I don't want to do that again. And I probably should have set a better expectation for the seller so they're not asking me why are 15 contractors walking through the house. Or I probably should have had somebody assist with the walkthrough in this remote market where I don't know any of these buyers and I don't know if I should really even trust them, and they try to go behind my back, right? So it's all about the expectation.
No, we have never ever experienced that. Just kidding.
Yeah. So it's you see a lot of things that should have been avoided. It could have been avoided. And you just don't do that again, right? And those are just a couple. We actually file memorandum of contracts on most of our deals now because we have had buyers go direct to the seller at a walkthrough, hey, these guys are actually trying to sell it to me for this price, and we'll go ahead and pay you this price, which is higher than you're going to get, but they cut us out of the deal. And it just, it's not cool. Anybody who's marketing in this business knows how hard it is to find a good deal. And so for that reason, we've got some, things in place that we now do because of it.
Smart. For some of our listeners who might not know what that means, what's a memorandum?
Good question. So think of it as a public notice of interest. So for example, we're just recording our contract with the county. We're actually notarizing the document and they're filing it. We use simplyfile.com now, and it's super easy. My team handles it, but ultimately it's just a way to make it public record that they can't sell this property until this is technically released. It's a lien, in a sense. And we do that. And if for whatever reason we didn't end up buying it, we're not going to hold that up. We're going to release it. But we have had sellers back out on us before, and we're not in the business of forcing anybody to sell a house. But if they didn't obey the rules of the contract, and then because they had somebody offering a higher price, like, they have to go through us. So it protects our interests in that deal, is what it does.
Yeah, so really what it does is once you've made a deal with a seller, you're going to file your agreement with the county, putting that in a notice. So if anybody tries to sneak around your deal and try to buy the house, it's going to be on public record that there's already an agreement in place. And in order to go around Michael or anybody else's deal doing that, they have to talk with him first. So it's a great way to protect your deals if you are making deals, especially if you're working with new buyers who might not know, like, or trust yet, because for the love of money, people will do some of the craziest things. So you got to protect the deal too. So awesome. So I have another question that I hear often with wholesaling. It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So do you build your buyers list first and have a whole bunch of buyers, and then you're trying to look for a deal for them? Or do you go find a really great deal and then bring it to the market and then find your buyer that way?
Yeah. So before knowing what I know now, I would have said, do it both at the same time. But it's kind of tricky to, like, find great deals and, like, build in buyers list. You can do it, and you should always be networking, I think, simultaneously. But I can tell you one thing: if you find a deal, buyers will come, right? It's like, if you build it, they will come. So you just find a deal, and you'll meet more buyers and become best friends with all the buyers if you have the deal. And
especially if it's a great deal.
It's a better talking point too. A great deal. That's the key. Don't send out a bad deal for your first one. Post on Facebook. That's how I sold my first wholesale deal. Is I posted it on Facebook, and I had everybody interested because it was a great deal.
Wait a minute, that works?
Can you believe it?
There's this couple out there I heard talk about that before, but I don't buy it. Right?
Yeah,
I've heard that.
Yeah. So no, well, that's awesome. And that's always one of the big debates is, do I build my buyers list first and spend 3 months trying to find out what every buyer in town wants before I even go look for a deal?
right.
And then I've learned, go find a great deal, share it with, on social media and all the networking that you've been doing, and the buyers will be coming to you. And on my very first wholesale deal 24 years ago, the first buyer came over and he was like, I will take it. And I was like, man, I probably sold that too cheap.
You sold it too cheap for sure.
But I will tell you, I knew him. I knew he was great for the money. I know he wasn't going to back out of closing, and that has value to me too.
Yeah.
So could I got another 5 or 10,000 for the contract? 15 was great when I was 22 and broke. It was like, might as well have had a couple zeros after that. But from having the right buyer, because of networking, was huge. So I'm with you on that. Find a great deal first.
Yeah.
A great deal. Not some mediocre thing, and then share it.
Yeah.
I want to know, is there like a most memorable deal, or one that is like just either haunts you or like sticks with you? Because we have a couple of those.
Look, he's smiling. He's like, which one do I pick from?
I was gonna say I only have 2 hands to count from, but the most memorable, like, I'm gonna talk about a virtual deal where we learned a lot of lessons on. I actually didn't even have a disposition manager. So it was a combination of me and my acquisitions manager doing the dispo.
This already sounds good.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get really good here in a second. This was in Hot Springs, South Dakota. Okay, so nobody knows where that's at, by the way, probably.
Yeah.
Very small town in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, and we were running statewide ads for whatever reason in South Dakota. It was a neighboring state to my core market. We're like, we could be the big fish here. It'll be easy and fun. We contracted this house for, it was like $5,000. Like, they were delinquent, about to lose it to a tax foreclosure. My acquisition manager was like, all right, I'm going to post this everywhere. He posted it on Facebook Marketplace. He posted it on Craigslist. And as you can imagine, for a $20,000 house, like, everybody was interested. Well, what ended up happening is like in a small town, like the word kind of gets around a little bit, and we didn't really tell the seller like very detailed like what to expect because we didn't even know like at that time. It was our first like virtual wholesale in that market deal, and he set up a day and a time. All of these buyers showed up. Somehow, either the house was broken into, and when somebody got there, they called the cops. And so not only did like 20 people show up, like families, buyers, like everybody, nobody was pre-qualified or nothing. The cops showed up. The seller was like, what is going on here? And it was a crazy deal. The buyers are trying to work a deal with the seller. The seller's like, hey, why are they trying to make me an offer? It was just like pretty much everything that could go wrong. It went wrong on that deal. But that was a memorable one because the police were involved, which is pretty entertaining.
When the police are involved, you don't forget, right?
We've had some of those too. So I have to ask, did you make the deal?
Yeah.
We did. And I think we made, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We ended up assigning that for maybe 5 or 10,000. It's always like the most challenging deals that are like the hardest to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
That was
then
one.
you make like the least amount on too. What it seems like.
That's what happened. Yeah.
That's just part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
I broke even on wholesale. That was a nightmare before. So, but to your point, do the right thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just because we can't make a huge profit on it doesn't mean that the seller has to be penalized extraordinary for the deal. There are times where we might ask for a reduction if it makes sense, but that one didn't. She was out of equity. We bought the house for $5,000 and she had $4,000 of back tax. So,
and it's some of those most challenging deals that you'll learn some of your biggest lessons from, right? And so every single time, whether it's a tiny deal or a big deal, there's always something that you could gather from there. Maybe some things that are, hey, we did this really well, and then this is where we messed up. And so Jen hosts the meeting on Fridays with our team, including myself. I got to be there. And if we've had deals that we did close or deals that we lost, what happened good here? And what could we have done better in this spot? And what does that look like? And we sit down with our team on Fridays, and this is the thing that we talk about. We're mindful of that because sometimes it's these little small things that can make a big difference. And then the other, if you're listening and you're wholesaling in a small town or doing even creative finance in a small town, you're going to go market that deal to other people in that town. They know everybody a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I'd have a seller call me and be like, hey, somebody said they saw my house on a Facebook group somewhere. Right. So we actually had a small change in process on our end to the point where we tell the seller like, hey, now that we have this under contract, I'm going to share this with some of my investor friends and some partners. And you might see it on, some social media pages and things like that. So if you do, I just don't want you to be alarmed by it. It's us doing it. It is totally okay. But I just want to let you know if the neighbor comes, knocks on your door and said, hey, I saw your house, on my Facebook page or something like that. I just don't want you to freak out, just to let them know. And so now when that does happen, you've already kind of forewarned them that like this might happen. If it does, no worries. But I'm just letting you know, I'm sharing this with my community, and that'll help some of those things blow up in your face. Cause I've also had that happen too. Mm-hmm. Not the cops on that one. Cops are in a different one. We were wholesaling, but
how does that even happen? Like it's wild, but it's key. Like you said, we were at one point over exaggerating because when something like really extreme happens, you're like, that was panicky. I never want that to happen again. Like, my heart was racing. And so, yeah, we're just like, hey, everybody and their dogs will probably come by. But if anybody shows up unannounced, that's not okay. Like, please let me know because we did not give them permission to do that. So,
yeah. So just having some proper disclosures with your sellers. Mm-hmm. If you do make a deal, you let them know these things up front. And the only way you're going to learn is either by learning from somebody who's already been through this, or you're going to learn the hard way. Either way, you'll learn. But the best thing is to be for full disclosure, let them know what's happening, and only work with the people who want to work with you, because some people might tell you that I don't want that happening, right? And then you have to make that decision if you're going to do business with them. Mm-hmm. And most people just really don't care. And they're like, cool, do what you need to do. And as long as I get my check at closing, I'm happy. So
yeah, I'm sure you guys have maybe turned down potential deals because of that too. There are people who, from day one of the conversation that, ooh, I don't want to work with you. And that's the beauty of doing what we do, is we can kind of pick, hey, sorry, your house doesn't qualify, right? But yeah, that's good times.
Well, and I think that's part of what you do when you own your own business, is you have to be picky and choosy and know who you're going to do business with. And that's totally okay. There are plenty of deals that we say no to because of just something not working. And when you're in a creative finance deal, you actually have to look at it a little closer, because if we're doing a cash transaction, once that seller gets their money and we do what we're doing, the deal is pretty much over with them. Right. With a creative finance deal, if I took over their mortgage and I'm making payments to their bank on their behalf, it might be 6 years later, 10 years later, and they're like, hey, is that still in my name? Or, so that could happen. Or if it's a free and clear property and I'm buying it and I'm doing seller financing, and I'm just paying them directly, so many times they might call and say, hey, Joe, I know our balloon is up in like 15 years, but are you planning on refinancing that soon? Because my wife and I want to get a yacht or a boat, or, whatever happens. And they just want to know. So you'll have these calls down the road, and you just got to expect it. But with either way, you want to be very selective, I think, is super important.
Mm-hmm. We're getting some good questions here, so I'm going to put this one up.
Yeah, let's get it up.
Mateo on YouTube, what method does he use to virtually inspect the house, or is the potential buyer just given a walkthrough? I know you kind of touched on it, but maybe just kind of explain a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question. So 9 times out of 10, we'll ask the seller if, just let them know, hey, part of our process is, now that we've, gotten everything in writing, we'll either have the seller provided a list of pictures that we're looking for, or we'll just hire somebody to come out. Is there one way or another that works better for you? So the seller actually typically is like, I don't want anybody else coming through if I don't have to. So they'll send us the pictures. We'll just send them the list. But in the case where it's an older seller, we usually use a service like WeGoLook.com. It's like a picture service. And sometimes there's not even services provided like that in small markets like we're talking about. So if that's the case, we'll just pay an agent like $100 to go get pictures for us.
WeGoLook. I haven't heard of that one.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, that's a good little thing. Because you're right. There's sometimes we'll ask this, and they're just the technology. Even we've tried to do FaceTimes, and we're looking at their chin the whole time and not able to see any of the house, and it's not their fault, right? But that's a great tip there. Thank you.
Forewarning: if you do get pictures from a seller, don't expect them to be very good. So unless they're a savvy younger seller, but we've had some that are decent, but pictures are everything. So sometimes it's just worth the extra $150, especially if you have a deal, to really maximize it, because pictures do sell a deal.
Yeah, well, and I think it's true. And when you have a seller do it many times, as you probably could attest to, you'll see some things in those pictures. You're like, whoa. I mean, people, and I'm like, their kids laying in bed, there's a picture, and I'm like, maybe you want to tell them to get under the cover. Just like you see like the craziest stuff in some of these pictures, family members hanging out.
They passed out on the bed.
Yeah, like all types of stuff when you're sending pictures. So, getting a company or getting a local somebody, a contractor or a service like this is also super helpful sometimes. But many times too, you could get the seller if they're able to.
Yeah, I was just sharing here the simple. How do you say that?
Yeah, simplyfile.com.
Simplyfile.
It's actually a service that you can get set up with, where you can file it directly, like e-file those documents. I don't know if they provide the actual document. Okay. However, there's probably some templates and stuff you could find with those. It's just like a notice of interest doc.
Sweet.
So yeah, I want to talk. I know in the beginning we talked about how you were doing the bandit signs and door knocking, but what kind of marketing are you doing now that you seem comfortable with? You find that it works well now that you've kind of graduated from bandit signs?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done bandit signs. So I've done every type of marketing that you could imagine. I mean, you name it, I've probably done it. So I'll tell you what we're currently doing because it's changed a lot. So in the early days when I was on offense, and not that I'm still not on offense, I love to go on offense, right? But I was doing cold calling and texting and bandit signs, things like that. Now our leads come to us. So what I mean by that is we pay for the marketing and then people call the marketing. So the top 3 channels that we're using today: TV advertising, pay-per-click marketing, and Facebook ads. And I'll add another one in there. We still do direct mail. So we buy houses, it's pretty straightforward. We don't get too fancy with it. I actually just approved a postcard. Maybe I could get it pulled up and share your audience. I'm not sure if that's possible or not, but somebody was asking, what do they say? We definitely lean into, not everybody can use this. You can self-proclaim, hey, I'm the best home buyer in the country. I'm number 1 or whatever. But like we actually put like as seen on TV on our postcards and on as much marketing as we can. So on our website, we have that. We've invested a good amount into like the aesthetics of our website. So when somebody comes there, they're like, oh, this company looks legit, right?
I've never done present mode on this. We're still kind of new to this platform. If I hit it, would you think you'd be able to share?
Yeah, I should be able to. I'll pull it up. I got my proof right here.
All right, I'm gonna hit share screen. I'll try. I don't know.
You ready? I think I got it. You ready for this? Can you guys see my screen?
No, I think I have to enable something.
Okay.
Oh wait, there it is. Hold on. Here we go.
There we go.
We did it.
Yeah. Yellow Letters HQ. So I had them craft this postcard and I paid like, whatever their fee was for that. But it's very simple. Just put, we'd like to make you an offer to buy your house. Better Business Bureau, as seen on TV. Call. And if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I think this is a little bit too much information. And the reason I say that is because something as simple as a like white postcard works almost just the same. In fact, I've done a split test on this. So I'll go ahead and stop. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done a split test on this where I bought some postcards. Postcard Mania sold me on this beautiful, slick looking postcard. Like it was way fancier than this one. And I sent out a batch to a list and it completely bombed. Like I think I got 1 call on it and I'm like, oh, so you don't actually have to be perfect. Like in fact, our autograph or our avatar is, who's our avatar? It's usually older people, people who are in distress, and they might see this postcard and be like, this is too perfect. Like this is a huge company. I don't want to sell to him. I'd rather sell to the little guy. And so that we found success with, just not getting too fancy with it too.
Yeah, that's why if you ever look at our direct mail, it is so like basic looking because we want to really keep the message kind of clean on it. So ours isn't even remotely fancy, I promise you.
Well, I think it's, you keep it, if you're overly complicating it too, it's too much, right? Like they start reading, you're like, like, I don't have time for that. But if you just keep the message simple, we buy houses. Well, okay. Like I'm interested in.
Well, another thing is you're testing different things and you're finding out what is kind of your niche, what does work. Like, hey, we like this one better. And that's the point of it. You'll kind of zone in over time of what's been really working for you well. And that's awesome.
Did you do driving for dollars and how did that work?
I did do driving for dollars. In fact, I hired a driver to do driving for dollars for me at one point, and I'm sure we got some deals over it, but it wasn't as consistent as I was hoping for. And I think it all comes down to volume. So we would only get like 300-400 records, and we'd send them to all of those distressed properties, and it seemed like a slower process. But I don't know. My patience maybe just weren't there for it. I might be crazy, but I actually liked to just send out a lot more postcards, even if I knew I was probably going to be throwing some away, to get more activity, to get more to get the phone ringing more. And I didn't have to pay, I don't have to pay a driver to do that. So yeah, I did it.
I love this question. If you had to start over today, what advertising method would you go with?
It's a great question. If I had to start over, I'm trying to think of the broke, like didn't have any marketing budget person. Honestly, like canvassing Facebook groups. Like you guys have to pay attention to what Jen and Joe are telling you, because I'm telling you, it works. Just don't get too fancy with it. Again, I've done both ways. I've done, I'm going to put my logo on here so they know I'm legit. And I've done like a super casual message. The super casual message always resonates more with people. So do that because it's free. If I were to start over, that's what I would do until I got a deal. But if I were to cut all of it off, if I had a little bit of marketing budget, I would go straight to pay-per-click marketing. And it's because it's the fastest way to find motivated sellers who call you. That's one of our biggest marketing channels is pay-per-click marketing. So two different ways. No marketing budget or marketing budget.
I love that. Yeah. Something for everybody.
That's awesome. So I'm sure everybody's gotten a ton of value today. If you do, please definitely give us the thumbs up on YouTube and all that great stuff for listening. Mike, how did these people get a hold of you, or how they want to follow you? Because you always put out great content. And one thing we didn't even touch on is, yes, business owner, doing great business, but also a dad, a family man, a husband. And it's kind of a great thing to see is somebody who's really great at business also be a great dad, right? And that's not always easy to do because, we're sometimes working these crazy hours.
And you love it. You love what you do.
I do.
So we're lucky to definitely have you. Where's the place where everybody could check you out and follow you? And
yeah, well, I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you guys. And so when you love what you do, it's not work. You'll never work a day in your life. But for me, you can find me on Instagram, which is where I would recommend if you want to see like the real, like raw version. You're not always going to get real estate. You're probably going to get a good amount of family. You're going to, maybe I'll throw a car in there every now and then, but it's Michael McDonald REI on Instagram. That's the best place to follow me.
Awesome.
So looking forward to, because we're only in February, although February seems long to me. I don't know why, but we're only in the second month. Like, what are your goals family-wise? Any trips planned, real estate, this life that you're building for yourself, to have this kind of freedom. Because again, how old are you?
Yeah. So I'm 31 and I have some really, really big goals because life is short and we only have one of them. So for me, like if I can travel once a quarter, I'm really happy. We live close to California. I would rather come to Florida way more often. It's just a further trip. But Florida's on the bucket list of places to go this year. We've been, so it's not really a bucket list, but there's one spot, I think it's up in like the Panhandle area, Panama, maybe. I can't remember for sure. My wife has the place picked out, everything. So we're planning on that. And where else? Maybe we'll go to Utah, probably go to Disney. There's a few places off the top that we'll definitely check out.
Yeah. And would you say too, like, just kind of paint that picture with your children a little bit as a 31-year-old dad? Because we were chatting a little bit before we hopped on here, because Joe worked crazy hours in the car dealership. So a lot when the kids were little, he was working. And so, was fortunate enough, we got out, full time here in 2020, but, our days look so much different than when he was, in his cubicle or office for hours upon hours. So like, you wake up on a Monday or Tuesday, like what kind of cool things you get to do with the kids that you wouldn't if you were, sticking 9 to 5.
Yeah, sometimes I forget like what it was like, because it's been like 5+ years already for me. And um I don't know, like Friday, I'll give you my Friday, because this is like my perfect day, honestly. um I go to the gym, I come home, I have breakfast with my family. um Maybe I do one meeting, I go to an appointment with my wife, we have a lunch together, and things are still happening. Like I'm not the one who's holding up the business, because the way I built it was to buy my time back, to give me the freedom. So I have an operator, and I have an executive assistant, and I have a team, and they know what to do. And you know, my ultimate goal is to be able to like go away for like 3 months, and to come back and like the account is like higher in revenue. You know what I mean? And I really feel like we're getting there. But yeah, it's just so many things. Took my daughter to slime. You ever seen the slime, like making the goo stuff? Did that on Friday. Um, it, go on a daily walk, enjoy the
Mm-hmm.
sunlight. There's just so many things that I would not be able to do without this business. And um, honestly, it's like pinch me. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to even believe that I would have never even dreamed. Like people actually do this, right? Like, wait a second, you're at home and it's Tuesday at 11 o'clock. What are you doing? Like, are you a bum? What are you doing? So that's
Are you a
that's
bum?
that's kind of what I think sometimes. It's like, wait, like anyway, it's very, very, very grateful, to say the least.
Awesome. I know Joe definitely, he almost reminds me more because I walked away before you did. So I've always kind of been home. So if anything, I'm trying to like get out of the house. But he just loves like being home, being around the kids, like just like you said, sitting outside, taking calls or doing what you got to do. Doesn't feel like work when you're doing it for you.
Yeah, and don't let me confuse you guys here. Like what I just described was my perfect day.
Perfect.
So reality is, this morning, my son was working on the potty training, decided to take his diaper off after he did the thing, and got some stuff on the floor. And so that's the reality of things. As I'm like, oh, I got to get to a meeting. Oh, I got to clean this up. And oh, by the way, I got to take this call at 7. But I love it. It's when you love it, it's not even that big of a deal. Whereas like if I had to take this call for my boss, like this sucks. But like for me, it's awesome. I love
Yeah.
it.
You're talking 7 in the morning. You're taking a call.
No. Like
Oh, oh,
7 the PM. But
okay.
I've taken calls at 7 in the morning too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like to share the reality. The goal is to go away for 3 months, and we're working towards that too, right? Like go to Europe and you come back and everything's just click,
And
chugging along.
I will tell you, if we're gone and what account keeps doing this while we're gone, we might not come back.
Stay. Like don't come back.
I've had some of our friends who say that their business actually operates way better when they're not there.
Micromanaging.
And every time they do get there, like they're like, please go away so we can do our job. So that's not a bad problem to have. That's pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are so appreciative of your time. I know you are a busy guy, and we're going to link all your stuff in the show notes and give you some more shout outs, because I feel like you really just got started, even though you've accomplished so much. And again, thank you for opening up and sharing some of the fun and not so fun parts of real estate.
Absolutely. Well, it's been my pleasure, and I appreciate you guys for having me on. So always enjoy catching up with you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Will we see you in a couple weeks next month?
I'm not going to make it to Tampa, sadly.
All right.
However, I am looking to buy a property that can be a second home. I've been looking for a long time. So if you guys hear of especially any creative finance deals in Pinellas County, I know you probably would buy it, but for whatever reason, if it doesn't check your box, please let me know, because I want to have a second home. I love Florida, and I love Pinellas County. So
Well, yeah, and honestly,
Got one we're working on right now.
I was going to say some of these deals, we want, but the numbers are funky, so it would be best for a homeowner. So
okay.
we shall talk.
I've got some right now we're working on,
Sounds
so we'll definitely keep you posted, bud.
Awesome. Well, keep doing your thing and share as much as you can, because everybody is benefiting from all that you're offering. So guys, go check Michael McDonald out. He's an amazing guy and so much to offer you. So thanks again, Mike, for being on today. And thanks for everyone for being here. So appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.